Have you ever heard the phrase zombie business? Think Blockbuster in the early 2000s. Stores were still open, customers were still walking in, but the model was already dead. It just didn't know it yet. It was a zombie business. That's what we're watching right now with the global religion. But if you look at the headlines, you'd think the opposite. You see articles that say religious decline stalls in the U.S. or revival among Gen Z. It makes it look like the secular wave hit a wall. But new research published by the Nature Communications and backed by a massive 2025 global study from Pew shows that we aren't looking at a reversal. We're looking at a sequence, a three-stage process that takes about 2 centuries to play out. And if you think the nuns are plateaued, you're missing the forest for the trees. Religion doesn't vanish overnight. It rots from the inside out in a very specific order. And today, I'm going to show you exactly where we are in that timeline. Hey, thanks for tuning in. I'm Mike Smithgall, the unelected mayor of Atheistville, and this is today's Mic Drop. Now, before we dive into the data, a quick heads up. I'm referencing 4 specific charts today that put the zombie nature of modern religion into perspective. If you're watching on YouTube, then they're on the screen. You'll see them throughout this whole discussion. If you're listening to the audio version, I don't want you to miss them. So head over to the show notes or go to atheistville.com, where I've published a full analysis titled The 3-Stage Fade: Why Religious Identity Outlasts Belief. You can review the 3-to-1 exit ratio and the secular staircase for yourself. And seeing the numbers laid out this way makes the pattern much harder to dismiss. All right, so let's look at the first one. Now, we've been measuring religion all wrong. We treat it like a light switch. You're either a believer or you're not. But the latest data suggests it's more like a dimmer switch, and it's being turned down by a steady generational hand. The light is failing, the room is getting cold, and we are witnessing the final fade to black. So take a look at this model from the 2025 communications paper. Sociologists have identified what they call the PIB sequence. That's participation, importance, and belonging. In plain English, people stop doing it, then they stop valuing it, and only then do they stop calling themselves it. Stage 1 is participation. That's the first thing to go. People stop waking up early on Sundays. They stop the public rituals. In various countries, the kids still believe just as much as their parents, but they aren't showing up to church nearly as often. Stage 2 is importance. This is where the feeling starts to fade. Religion goes from being the center of your universe to a hobby that you sort of have on the shelf. You might still say you're a Christian, but it doesn't dictate who you vote for or how you raise your kids. And finally, stage 3, the very last stage, is belonging. This is when the label finally drops. This is the atheist or none box on the census. The mistake we make in the US is looking at stage 3 data and thinking the trend has stopped. It hasn't. The belonging may be flat for the moment, but the participation and importance metrics are still trending downward. Now, you're going to hear a lot this year about how the decline has leveled off. Pew's 2025 US data shows that about 70% of Americans still identify with a religion. Now, that number hasn't budged much since 2020, but believers are still doing a victory dance. They're thinking that the secular surge was just a fad. But look at the global breakdown. Nearly 25% of the world is now unaffiliated. That is a massive slice of the pie. But here's the reality. Identity is sticky. It's connected to your grandmother and Christmas memories and your social circle. People cling to the labels long after the engine has stalled. And if you look at the 18 to 29-year-olds in the latest survey, sure, half of them still claim religion. But look at their practice. Only a quarter of them actually attend services monthly. Compare that to the 80-year-olds, where half of them are still in the pews. So this isn't a revival. We have a massive group of people who are religiously unaffiliated in their hearts, but they haven't updated their Facebook profile yet. They are the stage 2 citizens living in a stage 3 world. Now, I often say that population change does most of the work, whether anyone argues or not. We don't need to win every argument on the street to see a secular future. We just need to wait them out. Secularization is driven by a generational replacement. Every 10 years, a new cohort is born that is systematically less religious than the one before it. And the Pew Global switching data from the last decade confirms this. Christianity and Buddhism take the biggest hits because their younger generations are simply opting out. Even in places where religion seems to be growing, like sub-Saharan Africa, it's driven really by high fertility rates, not because people are suddenly finding Jesus in record numbers. In the West, we are watching the high religion generation pass away. When an 85-year-old who prays every day is replaced in the population by a 20-year-old who treats religion as a cultural background, the national religiosity drops. Even if that 20-year-old still calls himself Catholic because his mom would cry if he didn't, the functional secularism of the country has increased. All right, quick pause. If you haven't subscribed yet, I would love to have you join the community here at Atheistville. We're growing and we're building a space for honest conversation about faith and doubt and reason. Subscribing is absolutely free and it helps more people find this discussion and it helps keep the project going. And I want to ask you to do one more thing. If you could leave a comment, I read every single one. And whether we agree or we disagree, I respond respectfully because I do value open dialogue. And I hope you do too. And your comments really do help shape the conversation. And they tell the algorithm that this is a community worth sharing. And go ahead and spread the word. Tell someone else about the show if you think they would enjoy it. Or use an idea from this episode to start a thoughtful conversation. That's how we get back to talking with each other instead of just shouting past each other. All right, let's get back to it. If religion is declining, why does it feel like we're fighting about it more than ever? Why are battles over school libraries and prayer and sports and public funding going and getting so toxic? The PIB model helps explain this. When a society sits between stage 2 and stage 3, belief is weakening, but identity is still holding on. That's when people get defensive. Symbols start to matter more than practice. So fights like over the 10 Commandments in classrooms aren't about reminding believers of something they already live by. They're about anxiety over a culture that no longer reinforces those values automatically. The loudness of the religious right isn't a sign of strength, it's a response to loss. Participation is slipping, so the fight shifts to belonging. When inspiration fades, the pressure moves into law. Now, to be fair, the 2025 World Values Survey does show some exceptions. Post-Soviet countries like Russia and Georgia are seeing a religious revival. But let's look closer at why. Now look at this scatter plot. There is a clear downward curve. And as countries become more economically advanced and have a higher human development index, religious affiliation drops off a cliff. So places like the Czech Republic or Hong Kong or the Netherlands are leading the charge at the bottom of that curve. And the outliers at the top, those are almost always countries facing extreme political or economic instability. In those places, religion isn't about God, it's about nationalism. The Orthodox Church has become a tool for the state to signal that we aren't the West. It's an identity badge used to survive political chaos. Unless the United States turns into a literal authoritarian state where the church or the military are the only functioning institutions, we aren't following the Russian model. We're following the Danish model. We're following the UK model. In Denmark, almost everyone still officially belongs to a church, but almost nobody goes. And even fewer think it's very important. We're reaching the end of the sequence. The label is just a tax category. That's our future. It's a world where Christian is just a box you check because you like the architecture, you like the songs, but not because you think a creator is watching you eat a ham sandwich. So where does this leave us? For those of us here in Atheistville, the temptation is to get frustrated when the census data doesn't move as fast as we want. We want identity stage to happen right now. But we have to be realists. This is a 200-year cycle, and we are living through the long middle. This is the period where we have to defend evidence-based policy and secular neutrality against a group of people who are clinging desperately to a label they no longer practice. The transition is happening. It's mechanical, it's generational. Our job isn't to force the identity change, it's to ensure that as identity eventually catches up with our reality, the institutions of our society remain grounded in reason and fairness. The pews are emptying, the belief is softening, and the label will follow. It's just a matter of time. All right, so that's my 2 cents, unblessed and unfiltered as always. Agree or disagree, but that's what I got for you today. Religion isn't snapping back. It isn't staging some sort of a comeback. What we're watching is a very long transition. People stop showing up first. That's what's going on right now. Then the belief starts to soften next, and identity changes after that. When you understand that order, a lot of the noise around us suddenly starts to make sense. So if the numbers feel frustrating, just zoom out. This isn't a sprint, it's a generational change, and the real work for secular people right now isn't forcing labels to change faster, it's protecting evidence and fairness and pluralism while society catches up to how people already live. Now, if any of the numbers I mentioned today sounded surprising, especially that 3-to-1 exit ratio, head over to atheistville.com to read the full analysis and review the source charge for yourself. The link is in the show notes. I'm Mike Smithgall, and I'll catch you on the next one. Hey, I really hope you enjoyed today's show. Before you go, make sure you like and subscribe to the show and tell a friend. It really helps us grow. If you'd like more great content from us, be sure to check us out right here on YouTube. You can also find us wherever you get your podcasts and check out our blog at atheistville.com. Until we talk again, remember reason and compassion go a very long way.